right, welcome, Tanne.
Thank you, Tony. Thank
How
you
are
very
you?
much. Sorry?
How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. We've had quite some hot days here, and now temperatures are cooling down. And what about you? How are you?
It's nice out. It's not bad. It rains a lot, but that's
Mhm.
expected from Florida.
Of course.
Yeah, so
Well,
that's something that we
similar
have
here.
to deal with.
It's
So
great to be able to
I see
talk
the
between
tank
the two
behind you.
continents.
The tank
Sorry?
looks amazing.
Thank you very much. It's doing okay.
Oh, come on, you're so damn modest. You got a beautiful
No,
tank back there, and
there's
also
always room for improvement, but
there's
I
always
always
room for
tell
improvement for everything.
that's true.
But we won't get into that topic. So listen, Tan, um, what was it that got you all excited about the reef hobby? How did it all
Well,
start?
it actually all started with freshwater. As a child, for whatever reason, I liked to watch the fish in the local fish store in a small village where me and my parents lived by then. And at a certain point, I told my parents I also wanted that at home. Um, and after a while, my parents, I believe it was my father's idea, told me I could get a goldfish in a bowl when I would learn to tie my laces. But actually, I didn't care about laces because Velcro was way easier. So why bother about laces? So my father built me a contraption um, of a wooden piece of wood and some laces attached to it. And I think he figured it would take me ages before I was capable of tying my laces. But actually, I'd never tried. But within 5 minutes, we went to get the goldfish because tying my laces was not so difficult. And that's what it started with. And then I upgraded to a smaller, like 30-liter or so freshwater aquarium, one slightly bigger. And then I got into the marine stuff, which is now about 30 years ago.
So 30 years ago.
30, 30, yes.
Wow. So 30 years ago, the technology was way different back then, wasn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, and also my spending budget was also different than it is now. That also didn't help a lot, but it did help me having to start out so simple because it was really simple. Um, it did help me to learn to appreciate small things in the hobby. To give you an idea, the tank was like, again, 30 liters with one T8 tube over it, and I had a tube worm, some live rock, one Esterina starfish, the one we regard as a pest. And after saving a lot, I was capable to of buying a few shrimps and damsels. And that was my tank with some algae in it. It was actually pretty nice for them.
Well,
And I was really proud of it.
wow. Interesting. See, and look how far you've come. I mean, you got this. Well, what size is
it
the tank behind you?
the tank behind me measures 110 centimeters like this, 80 centimeters water level, and the depth is 70 centimeters. And the measures might sound a bit strange, but I had no other option. The house we bought is more than 100 years old, and this is what I could accommodate.
Ah,
And because of the length and the width, they were limited, I decided to do it a little bit deeper. And then I just measured my arms. And I felt that if I would do it quite efficient, I would be still able to touch the bottom of the tank with my fingers. So that's why I ended up with the 80 centimeters.
okay. All right. So you were constricted with the amount of space you had available.
Definitely, definitely. But
Okay.
I also think size doesn't matter. It depends on what you do with it. And yeah, that was a little bit cheesy. Sorry about that. But anyway, I felt if I would have doubled the volume, that would maybe be interesting, but I would just be able to keep double of what I'm doing now. But would it be double the fun? What about the costs? What about the amount of work? So I thought this size, around 600 liters, has the benefits of having enough size, but not the drawbacks of having to clean a large surface area of glass every day, for example.
Right, right. So let me ask you a question. Okay, so how long has that system been in place?
The one behind me is in place nearly 6 years now.
6 years. Okay.
Nearly.
So if you had the ability to redo it today, what would you do differently?
That's a really good question. I might consider, I'm not saying I would do it, but I might consider, as the 80 centimeters is already really inconvenient, to up it 20 more centimeters.
Oh.
To make actually this window even more square. I love the water depth. I love it a lot.
Right.
It's really inconvenient, but the inconvenience is already there. So I would consider that, but I'm not saying I would do it.
Okay, so that would be that. So now all the filtration is all underneath the tank. Is that where it is currently?
No, not completely. I can, if you like, show you. It's partially underneath the tank, but the tank is really in the wall. The only thing you see here is the tank with the frame around it.
Right.
We had a lid over here, but behind me there's a room which my wife calls the washing room and I call it the aquarium room. And I do
technologies there.
definitely there is a washing machine in there as well, but apart from that, it's definitely an aquarium room. So, for example, the filtration is behind it, but the skimmer, the chiller is on top of the tank, actually, really near the ceiling. So I could get the heat out of the room really easily. And there's also a small kitchen sink in it, scullery, I believe it's being called. And behind that, there's the dosing system for the elements and everything. So I actually took most of the whole room. So I would defend it, calling it aquarium room.
Right. So you took a lot of her space, huh?
My space.
Okay.
She took some of the space. Well, anyway, it works. And that's the most important thing.
So now let me ask you this. Being that I always look for lessons learned, what was something that you did when you first built the system and you had to modify soon after because you saw that it didn't work? Do you have any that fits?
In this current tank?
Excuse me?
In the current tank, the one behind me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, I thought it would be a good idea to work with one of those Geiger pumps. But again, this house is 100 years old. The amount of noise in the whole house was quite incredible. So I removed that pretty fast and replaced it by more silent pumps. And what I would do is never ever, really never ever, trust any digital device again for measurements, just blindsided. I had two devices which measured the temperature. Both were a few degrees off.
Wow.
In the same direction. And when I, like 2 years ago, decided to lower the temperature on purpose to, my aim was 23 degrees, I actually was already running the temperature pretty low because 23 degrees Celsius is low for a reef tank. So I was actually lowering the temperature to more like 20 degrees, which is nearly a cold water tank. And I did that because I trusted both thermometers. So now I do have two digital devices which are okay now, but I do check them with a calibrated mercury thermometer, which I managed to lay my hands on. So trust in electronics, trust in test kits, always double check, especially for if you, for whatever reason, are trying to push the limits to out of the convenient central area where there is space for errors. But as soon as you leave the convenient area, definitely not trust any test kit, any measurement without double checking. Wow. It sounds pretty logic.
No, and that's really great advice because sometimes we take for granted what we have and we don't check on it, and all of a sudden something goes
Absolutely.
bad, and you're wondering where did it come from, and it could be from a faulty item, a faulty product, a faulty equipment,
Definitely.
right?
I fully agree with that.
Okay, and those are lessons learned. I'm really
Yeah,
big about that in the new book that I'm putting together. I have a
good
whole
idea.
section of lessons learned because there's so many people that have so many different things that have happened to them. And I think all aquarists can learn from disasters from other aquarists.
Yeah, and there's no need, of course, there's a need to experience things, but if somebody already knows you should not do this or keep an eye on that when trying to whatever, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. So
No,
it's really good idea to include such a chapter, definitely.
right. So it's just checks and balances, really. That's really what it comes down
Definitely,
to.
definitely.
So, okay, so from the lessons learned, what is, let's go to something nice. Like, what
That's
is your
better.
holy grail fish to have?
Well, that's actually quite a good question because most of the fish you see behind me are
Right,
picked because of a reason. And there are some more rare or expensive fish. You could regard them as being holy grail. But if you see the big clownfish here, I'm not sure if you can see it on the screen, but the female clownfish, I bought it over, I think, 18 or 20 years ago as a male, two tiny ones from the Philippines. Then the tank bred versions were not available yet. Um, it has been the male for over 15 years.
right,
And when the female died, you know what's coming. It will change into the female. But this one is what actually my oldest fish, together with the yellow tang, which is from 2002. So it's 18 years old now.
right.
And they're really common, cheap fish, but they're there. I bought them by then because I like them. But now I really appreciate them even more because they've been with me for so crazily long. To give
The
them the
good times
female,
and the bad times, I bet.
definitely. I've actually, they've experienced a lot with me, but I've worked hard to keep them alive. So in that regard, you could call them special.
Okay.
So to me,
But,
they
but,
don't fish.
but my
Sorry?
question was the holy grail. I mean, something that I guess it
Yeah.
depends on your interruptus.
If you talk about rarity or price, you could maybe say the interrupters, but the Grandma de Jonge I'm seeing, if you can see it now,
Oh,
is
yes,
especially in the US, of course, even more rare, I think.
exactly.
Um, I don't see it right now. I could put some food in it so we might be able to see it. Um, it'll take a minute. But anyway, the Yongi might be a special one as well.
Okay.
And actually, the Yongi is also special because I saw the first 4 fish which were used for the scientific description with a no pictures sign swimming. Here it is. At the importer. And we also went to Cuba, Trinidad to see if they really were as rare as everybody says. And we've spent lots of dives in Trinidad, and it's been great fun to go there. And we actually managed, this was just good luck, to meet the collector of the first few De Jongis, and we dove with him. But they say they were really rare. We did see one hybrid between the normal Loreto, so the common Grama, and the De Jongi, but I've not seen any De Jongis there. And later I heard we should have been diving a little bit further into a certain, not to be mentioned, direction. But I've been to its birthplace, so that's also pretty special to me. The De
Oh
Jongi.
wow, that's a great story. Very good story. I
And
love it.
there's one more with a travel story in it, which is the Gemtang. And together with the Lapillos res, I got them as a present from the exporters on Mauritius. I became friends with them, And they visit me, well, of course, not during this COVID area in Europe, every now and then. And I've also visited them. They, together with all the legal paperwork, well, they were given to me by the exporters themselves. So that's also pretty fun.
Wow. So directly from the source.
Definitely directly from the source. Definitely.
Wow, that's a great story. All right, so now we took care of the fish. What about coral? What is your, like, you know, there are people that like SPS, there are people that like LPSs, there are people that like a mix, there are people that like soft corals. What is your holy grail of coral?
Actually, I like them all.
Come
and
on,
if I
there's
walk,
always a preference. It's like
yeah.
children.
Well, there's a preference and there's the real world. And if I walk at the importers section, we have a great importer here, and due to my books, I can walk between their tanks. I drool over the LPS tanks. I drool over all the nice Australian corals. But the LPS is not that good of a choice for my tank due to my preference for certain fish. And the SPS corals are also not the best idea because they're like supermodels. They need too much attention. I'd rather focus on the fish and having easy corals in my tank, so I don't need to bother too much with them. And so the easier corals, I generally like them. And a special one is the pink bird's nest coral, I believe it's being called in the US. And the reason it's special, because I now know that everybody thinks it's normal, I know. But we knew from the books in the beginning of the 90s, bird's nest corals existed. I've also seen a few pictures then of pink ones. And then the fish store close by called me, "Hey Tanne, I finally, after years of waiting, I'm not joking, got in 6 pieces and one is pink. Do you want me to reserve it?"
Oh.
Well, if I now calculate the price back to dollars, it was kind of $200, which was, to me, being in my teens, a lot of money. So together with a friend, we decided to split the coral in 2 and the price. And this is a frag of a frag, well, generations back, of this coral I got about 25 years ago.
Wow.
It's still the same pink bird's nest.
Right. So you've given out quite a few pieces of that because, you know, it's been around a long time. It's grown quite a bit.
Definitely.
So you've shared.
And it looks nice. It's easy. It's forgiving. The fish don't like it too much. So it's a good coral for me.
Wow. So based on all of that, what has been the longest distance you've traveled to go get a coral or a fish?
Well,
what are the extremes you've gone through? I mean, obviously, going to Cuba for Tegrama is quite interesting, but...
well, we wanted to see it. We could not take it.
Ah, okay. So what would be the longest distance you've traveled for a fish or a coral?
Well, actually, before I knew it was rare and expensive, I liked the gem tang a lot, equal to the yellow tang. But then I found out about the price difference and then the availability. And then I actually have made serious plans, I'm not joking about this, to fly to Mauritius to somehow, I had no clear idea how then, get one there. The plan never got there, but anyway, in the end, I do have one swimming behind me. So that's for the fish, the longest distance. And the corals, we once made, well, we every now and then make road trips together with a few aquarist friends. And we like to go to a city, drive whole day, stay there for the evening, have some food, drink a few beers, and then next day do some shopping and drive back again. That's the concept. And this, I don't think you can clearly see it on the video, but there's a small frag there and somewhere there is a bigger piece. I do have a bicolored Stylophora, which is pink with green polyps. And that is, I think, the coral I've driven like 1,500 kilometers for or so, which is, for European standards, it's a big distance. I know for the US, you think, hey, that's visiting my neighbors, but to us, it's a big distance. And actually, we did not plan to get this coral, but when we were there, we were actually slightly disappointed. But then we saw these corals, and we both got one. So now we still make jokes about it being the most expensive coral I've ever had, which it actually is if you calculate the costs of the trip.
Okay, so now let's get into some equipment here, because I know my trip to the Netherlands was an interesting one last year. I had a lot of fun. You guys were very entertaining, took me all over the place. It was great. It's probably my wife and I one of the most memorable trips we've ever had. So
thanks to hear.
You know, thank you guys for really taking good care of us. But you know, you guys are really good equipment. What do you have lighting your system?
Well, I have to tilt the camera, so I want to see if it will look really good.
That.
Do it?
Do it, baby. Come on, let's go. People here want to see other stuff too.
Let's see. Up here, we have two Philips Coral Care lights, the newest ones, which were
the Gen 2s.
Yeah, the Gen 2. They're available in Europe since a few months, and in the US, I think they will be available soon. And they're here since December. I got them as prototypes. It really says prototype on the sticker on it. And before that, I had the same ones. And in between, there's some Japanese spotlights I got from Kojiwada. You can see one here. But anyway, if I compare these two Coral Care lights to the previous generation, which was not really officially available in the US, but it is, they were here. They have slightly more shimmer and slightly more fluorescence. So that's nice. But anyway, these two lights do the job of lighting this tank up to the bottom. I could keep Tridacna on the bottom, but I don't do that because the Resi always tries to bury them under the sand. So I've placed them everywhere in the reef just to avoid that. But anyway, the PAR readings are high enough on the bottom to be able to keep Tridacna clams on the bottom in 80 centimeters of water depth.
Well, I'll have to say that when I was there, I did see the Gen 2 being displayed at the conference. And we did go see Wesley's tank. And it was, I came back just in awe of that light system. I said to myself, wow, they need to bring this to the United States. I mean, this thing is going to change the way we view these lights, especially the way that Philips took their time in developing the science behind it, right?
Yeah.
That was quite amazing on Philips' research and development of this light, you know. And when you think about it, if there's any light company on the planet that has the resources to do the research that Philips did, it's Philips.
That's true. And other companies have to invent everything, the power supply, the whatever, and they just could take existing concepts which they already had to light anything else, and then include the spectrum needed to grow corals and let them look nice. So they didn't have to think about all the practical things like thermal control and whatever. They already had that. And I think they did a great job. And if you compare, well, there are lots of different types of lights, of course. And I think the big benefit of lights such as these is that it's a blanket of light, like you would also have with a blanket of T5 bulbs, but without the drawbacks of having all those T5 bulbs. And everybody who has had them and knows how much work it is to replace them every 6 or 9 months will probably agree with me. They would not miss that.
Well, yeah, definitely. But I'll tell you one thing. With my numerous trips to Italy, there's so many gorgeous, gorgeous reef aquariums in Italy that just, I mean, so vibrant, and they're all just T5s, and they love their T5s over there. So T5s do provide something, but I do love the shimmer, right? The glitter lines that are produced
Yeah, that's better.
by this light fixture, as well as like metal halides, right? When you look at a metal halide aquarium, the glitter lines
Definitely.
represent that picture that you see in the ocean when those lines streak across
It's
the,
beautiful.
you know, to see
That's
them in an aquarium is amazing. And then to see that Phillips was able to say, yeah, we can reproduce that too. And they do.
well,
They do it
it's not as extreme as with metal halide, but they could, in my opinion, up that a little bit. On the other hand, the lack of shadowing, which is really good for the corals, of course, can really, in my opinion, be compared to what you could achieve with a blanket of T5s over the tank. So absolutely, the lights are great, and of course, controllability of the LED fixtures is also really good. And I'm not a guy who likes an ink blue tank. Some people do. It's already quite blue to my taste, although it looks more blue on video than in real life. But at the beginning of the end, or at the end of the day, the blue half an hour or so where all the corals show their fluorescence is that's really nice. So yeah,
definitely.
I'm happy with the lights.
But I'll tell you, in this video, you can see that the tank does not look blue at all. Well, it may have a little shimming of blue, but it's palatable to the eye, so it's not a problem. Okay, so we talked about that lighting because I really am a big fan. I really am. I really like
So
that
am I.
light a lot. What about life support? Which ones are the most important pieces of your equipment for life support?
A powerful return pump and a good protein skimmer. I think that's the basis. And then you have nothing for a very long time. And then it's a high quality dosing pump together with some practical add-ons such as a active carbon filter, for example.
Right. So what is the protein skimmer of choice?
Bubble King, Royal Exclusive Bubble King. And the reason is, well, again, I am not old, but in reefing I am. When I started out reefing and my budget grew big enough to have a proper reef tank, most skimmers did not work well. Or they worked for a week or so, and then you had to take them apart and clean the whole thing again, and so on. And the Bubble King was the first one which really kept on working. It's like you switch on a light and it works. So I got a Bubble King like 15 or 16 or 17 years ago, one of the first ones.
Wow.
And upgraded it to a newer one a few years ago because the new pumps, the DC pumps, are more quiet and they're more controllable.
Exactly.
So that, in my opinion, I'm not saying you have to have such an expensive skimmer to have a proper reef tank. Absolutely not, because now there's many great alternatives as well. But redundancy, especially when I'm away, both my wife and I love to travel. I don't want to worry about equipment breaking down when I'm not here. So that's why I chose for such an expensive skimmer. But on the other hand, as when you stay in the hobby for a long time, you plan to stay, and you think of the costs of running it over a long time, and the electricity consumption is low, and the lifespan is really long, then you could wonder what's the cheapest option.
I see. Well, good. All right. So you did mention chemicals. So
Yes.
what do you do, and you mentioned the dosing pump. What do
Yes.
you dose with? What do you use to dose with, and what do you dose?
I actually have a few Grotech German dosing pumps, and they were the first ones, like again 20 or so years ago, to have multi-channel dosing pumps. I still have one of them, still running without any problems since that time. So I'm really impressed by their quality. Never had any problems. But now I have a few more of those dosing pumps, and also the more modern one, which even have a small display. And what I dose, I've changed a few times, and I'm not saying I will stick to what I'm doing for the next 10 years, but I'm really happy with what I'm doing right now. I dose the Fauna Marine Balling Light products. So there's one canister with magnesium, one canister with alkalinity, so sodium hydrogen carbonate, and one with calcium. And in the alkalinity and the calcium, there's also their trace elements. That's what I dose. Next to that, I have my own carbon source, which I dose, which consists of vodka, vinegar, and some sugar. And I use that to mainly keep the nitrates low. And to control phosphates, I've tried, as most reefers, I think, quite a few options. But I love to be lazy, and I also like consistency. So, for example, if you would work with phosphate removing media, they get exhausted after a while, which would lead to fluctuations in the levels. So since about a year or two, I dose a liquid iron-based phosphate remover, only 2 milliliters a day on my 600 plus liter system to keep the phosphates low. Mm. So that's what I dose automatically.
Oh, okay.
Currently.
Very good, very good. So let me ask, okay, so if you had any advice to help simplify and make success for other hobbyists, what would you suggest?
My books.
I was going to come to that, but okay.
And yours. And yours.
So since we're there, I was going to come to that.
It was too easy.
Let's go there. So, do you have a copy to show there to the audience?
I will get one.
By the way, he has 2 books, and he's only going to go get one. I'll make him go get the second one too.
Actually, it all started out as a joke. This was part number 1, and now we have part number 2.
Oh, perfect.
And this one is translated to English as well, and it started out as a joke.
So it is translated to English.
Yes.
See, you know, it's interesting because I told I just had a meeting with Julian a couple of days ago, and you know, when I was there with you, you gave me a copy of your book. You gave me volume 2, anticipating that volume 1 you had given to Julian, right?
Yeah, there was a misunderstanding. He also has volume number 2.
So what happened was I did get number 2 from you, and then when I went to pick up volume 1 from Julian, it turned out that it was volume 2 as well. So now I got 2 copies. Thank you very much. But so I mentioned to Julian that your book was also in English, the first volume, and he goes, no, it's not. And I said, I think it is. So it is.
First volume is in English, definitely.
Right. Okay.
And at this moment, the second one is only there in Dutch.
Okay, so now, why do you say that it started out as a joke? Explain.
Well, it's quite a long story, but I'll try to keep it short.
Yes, please.
During my studies, I teach biology. I had to do something either with young people or with biology, but not working at a school. It was some kind of traineeship. And I had problems with that because my side job was too important to pay my rent. And then one of the fish stores says, well, work for me, do some things, and you'll be fine. So that's what we did. But actually, after a few days, all the jobs which required my level of education, my assumed level of education, were done. And then I thought, well, let's write a manual to how do you actually run a marine aquarium. And that was in the time before the internet. In the end, they had that manual as their manual. Another fish store also wanted it, so that became interesting. Then the foundation behind the former Dutch magazine said, can we publish it? I said, well, we have to talk to these fish stores first because I have an agreement with them. And then that was 2005. And then a few years later, I think 2011 or 12, the guy at the fish store said, hey, can you update this book? So I thought, yeah, why not? And I actually had no clear idea because publishing books is not my job. So I started writing down my ideas of how, of some kind of starting manual for wanting to be marine aquarists. And then I found out that the previous book as a PDF was not only spread with my permission over the internet, but there was one website where the author didn't want to remove the PDF as he had written it, he said.
Oh.
That made me decide this argument. I won it because I told the owner of the website, check any page in his book and in the book you find on any other website with my name on it, check any words, and it was exactly 100% the same.
Oh, so he plagiarized you.
Yeah, but he didn't even blame me of plagiarizing him. So I thought it's not going to be a digital book again. So then I actually discovered how do you publish a book on paper and make it look nice. And in the end, we had the simple version, and then we had the full color hardcover book, which is now the best-selling book in my language on keeping marine aquaria. It was in the top 1,000 of the Dutch web shop, which is actually comparable to your Amazon.
Congratulations.
As the only aquarium book, seriously.
Wow.
That was fun.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Well deserved. Well, you've been in the industry for a very long time.
That's true.
And, you know, your successes are amazing, but, you know, it's interesting because there always seems to be this kind of thing with people from the Netherlands. You guys have this strong relationship with corals and the fish and everything else. When I met Tom, I was impressed with the book that he gave me.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
He wrote the book at the age of 15.
It's unbelievable. I know. It's unbelievable indeed. I think there's something in the water, I guess.
And I go, oh my God, you know, it's the way the people in the Netherlands embrace this hobby is really, truly amazing. And judging from what the conference did, right? We were at the conference and the line of people to get inside, I still have a video of it. I may put it on this one as well, so people can see the conference. It was amazing that the number of people that come in to embrace this hobby is truly fascinating.
I think it's all around the world, but what might help here is that it's a small area, so a get-together always looks crowded really fast. And we do have both in the Netherlands and Germany and Belgium, which are both bordering countries here, a few great companies in the industry, both in manufacturing things such as lights, but also skimmers, pumps. We have the Young Marine Life, which is also really a strong force in the hobby, I think, worldwide. Exactly. So that being in that position with having these people and these companies close by, because you've seen the country is small, makes things easier, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I was traveling with you guys and we crossed the border from Belgium to the Netherlands, back to Belgium, my phone was going crazy because it kept saying, welcome to Belgium, welcome to the Netherlands, welcome to Belgium.
To us, it's normal.
And that's normal, exactly. And then also a little tidbit fact, right? The Netherlands is under sea level, right?
Yeah, it depends on where you are, but to us, again, that's normal. And indeed, it's under sea level, so we need to control the water height everywhere. And I personally don't do a lot for that, but we have politicians who hire the right people who do that for us.
Oh, okay. So let's leave this. It was wonderful having this chat with you. For me, it's morning time, and for you, it's late afternoon.
It's nearly dinner time.
Right. Let's leave this on a positive note. What is your advice to any hobbyist besides your book? What would you suggest? for success?
Well, that's a good question because there's so much advice to give. And I can imagine many hobbyists getting advice and they're not capable of filtering out what would work for them because there are multiple ways of doing it right, but you cannot combine all those ways. So I think one piece of good advice would be to definitely listen to experienced people who are already in the hobby for a while. Look at their tanks to see what you can achieve with their advice and think over if it would bring you benefit. In my opinion, having the basics right is more important than striving for perfect water parameters, for striving to get that fancy new fish or coral. But I think if you have the basics right and start keeping basic animals, like I'm trying to keep simple corals, is I think more productive on long run than focusing on getting everything perfect, because experienced reefers know that would make no sense to do it because you will never get it perfect anyway. And you would lose by focusing on those details, the big picture. If I look at the tank behind me, Tony, you were praising me because of it, and thanks a lot. And I wanted to say that it's good to every now and then to look at your own tank through somebody else's eyes. I mean, you are probably watching a few nice things behind me, but if I would turn around, I would see the fish with the damaged fin. I would see the dead piece of coral somewhere. I would see the not so perfect composition here on the left because I broke the whole piece down a few months ago because it was nearly outgrowing the water. But if you look at your own tank through somebody else's eyes and then think it over, you'll probably enjoy the hobby for a longer time and also to a deeper level.
Wonderful. Great advice. Tanne,
Thanks.
thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate you taking your time to talk with us. This is going to be very memorable. And I'm looking forward to this whole coronavirus thing going away so we can get back together to these nice groups again and meet up again and have a great time.
I also can't wait for that. And it's been an honor to be featured here. Thanks a lot for that.
All right. Thank you very much, Tanne. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your day and don't overfeed the fish.
I will definitely do that. Thanks. Have a nice day.
All right. You too.
Here they go. They already know it.